What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're taking a look at the Nike Air Zoom Trainer 1. So these were a shoe that were pretty surprising to me. So despite the fact that they're not part of the Metcon line, they're still surprisingly very capable training shoes. I was able to do pretty much everything in my normal training regimen, which is CrossFit, including Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting movements, my plyometric bodyweight movements, gymnastics. Everything that I threw at the Air Zoom trainers, they handled just fine. The only thing that I did not do in these shoes, for obvious reasons, is rope climbs, because there's really nothing to protect this shoe for rope climbs. I didn't want to destroy them. But just about everything else, these handled great. The only thing that I don't really like about them is the name. They're the Air Zoom trainers. I feel like they should be the Zoom Air trainers, but this is the first of, I think, of a revamped line. Like, I remember there were the Zoom Trainer ones back in 2013, somewhere around there, that reminded me of these shoes. But these are actually, if I think back, a much better shoe than those were. So first off, let's talk about the construction of these shoes. So it's kind of a minimalistic looking shoe. You have a single piece upper, and that upper is a suede material. I'm pretty sure it's a synthetic, but it is quite the dirt magnet. So if you want to buy these, I mean, you have to expect that they're gonna get pretty dirty. If you get the white ones, you get the Volt ones like this, it's just gonna be part of it. On top of the toe, there are some overlays to give you a toe bumper. There's also a little raised outsole piece in the front of the toe, but it's not like the normal Metcon lines where the toe bumper is pretty big and designed to give you more protection to do burpees and jam your toes into the ground when you're doing so. You can definitely still do burpees in these just fine though. Coming around to the back part of the shoe, there is this large TPU piece that houses the midsole. And the purpose of that is so that the heel gets more stability. The midsole doesn't want to compress quite as much when there's something outside of it. And in use, it actually works pretty well. The heel stability on this shoe is surprisingly pretty good. The midsole itself is actually pretty soft and squishy, but it is only to a point before it becomes stable. And I thought that was one of the most surprising things about this shoe. Of course, because it is a Zoom Air or Air Zoom shoe, there is, of course, your Zoom Air unit that is inside of the shoe and is actually visible from just taking out the insole, which is glued in. And it's kind of hard to replace, but I mean, for the sake of this video, I'll just pull it out anyways. So you get full length all the way from the heel to the toe, and it is noticeable. Like, you feel it right under your foot. You feel the springiness of it. Sometimes you feel like your foot is a little unsettled, but it does add quite a bit of pop to your step when you're doing your jumping, running, or plyometric movements. And it doesn't actually detract all that much from the lifting movements too. So I really like that about this shoe. Coming around to the outsole of the shoe, we have a waffle type forefoot with flex grooves there cut away. And then at the heel part, it's like, I don't know, I want to say it's like a pixel type design, and it's mainly flat. The actual profile of the shoe is mainly flat, so even the toe spring is pretty minimal in the shoe, giving that impression of being a serious training shoe. And then right at the heel, there's a slight rocker so that you get, just a little bit more assistance when you're doing your running or hard sprinting movements. The outsole profile, like I said before, is just generally flat, which I really like about this shoe. And it makes it so that ground contact or being able to solidly place your foot on the ground is very easy to do. Now, coming around to the top with the lacing system, there's really not anything too special here. They said that there's some kind of midfoot wrap on the online details, and I'm assuming it's this middle part right here. I didn't really notice it doing anything special in terms of the way that the shoe fits, but I think the lacing scheme in the shoe it works just fine. So there's really not anything I can complain about there. I do like the tongue on this, and it's slightly thin, it's padded, it's got this elasticity feel to it, and it stays in place. So I really like that about it, and it's ventilated, it's comfortable. The whole ankle collar on this shoe is a little bit more on the minimal side. There's not a lot of cushioning, but the fit around the ankle is fine. There's no heel slip or anything, though if you did have issues with that, there is the extra eyelet so that you can do a runner's lock with these shoes, or you could just lace it down a little bit deeper into your instep. So I don't have the stack height on these shoes, but I did get the drop from Nike, and it is 3.5 millimeters. Surprising. I thought that these were gonna be somewhere in like the 6 to 8 millimeter range, but 3.5 was surprisingly good, and you can actually feel that they're generally flat when you have these shoes on. Another thing that's pretty good about these shoes is the weight of them. A size 10.5 men's came in at 12.3 ounces, or let's check the grams, 347 grams. Okay, so when it came to sizing the Air Zoom trainers, I'm gonna recommend that you go with your normal Nike sizing on these shoes. I got them in a size 10.5, and I think they fit like right on the money for me. If you have really wide feet, I'm gonna say that these are not gonna be one of the best options for you due to the way that the upper is. It's not that, like, it doesn't expand very much, and it's a little bit more on the taut side. So it is flexible up and down, but like if you have a wide set of metatarsals or toes, it's really not gonna give you very much play to work with. You could try sizing these up, and that might make it a little bit better, but based off my experience, I'm gonna say that these are not so good for wide foot people. The midfoot of the shoe has no real arch. They're like a neutral shoe, so they're not gonna push your foot in any way or another. So if you had collapsed arches or flat feet, I don't think that that's gonna be an issue for you in this shoe. And then once again, the fit around the ankle is actually pretty good on these shoes. There's no heel slip or anything. I never noticed any kind of looseness in the ankle collar of these shoes, or nothing that I couldn't solve by just lacing them up tighter. For reference, I got these in a size 10.5. My Metcon 9s are a size 10.5. My Metcon 8s are a size 10.5. Pretty much all my Metcons are a size 10.5. And another kind of competing shoe with this is the Free Metcon. And in the Free Metcon, I actually wore a size 11. When it came to running, I thought that these were surprisingly good. The thing about these shoes and the Zoom Air unit is that it keeps you in motion, or it wants to keep you in motion. So when you're running, like, there's a really positive feeling about these shoes that like just bounces you forward to the next step. There's no like carbon plate or anything in these shoes, or midfoot shank, I don't think. But that Air unit, just, it keeps you going, it keeps you like in motion. The same thing goes for like box jumps and burpees, even double unders, like the repeated bounding motions. This thing is like an active feeling shoe. It makes you want to keep on going. It can feel a little bit fatiguing though if you're just standing in one spot. So I noticed that after like a long day coaching, my feet kind of were unsettled because I'm just, just standing there not really doing anything. And I thought that that was a little weird about them. But if you're walking, if you're running, if you're jumping around, then I think that these are great. Like box jumps, like repeated box jumps, felt really good in these. You touch down, come off the box, it just pushes you into the next movement really well. And that's also why I like them for running. The one thing that I'm not so keen on with these shoes is the upper is not like that flexible. It's good enough, and it's fairly light, but it kind of has this like crumply feeling to it. So you can kind of hear it there. That doesn't have the highest impression of quality. Plus, it doesn't really feel that good on top of your foot, but it doesn't really stop you from being able to do the movements that you want to do in these shoes. Now, going back to lifting, which I thought that these were surprisingly capable for. So I use these for Olympic weightlifting movements, and I was never really at a loss of like responsiveness or power delivery. I thought that these were actually pretty good. They take a little bit of getting used to because, yeah, there's that Air unit, and it kind of wants to push your foot around a little bit. They're not the absolute most responsive shoe. So if you're comparing these to pretty much anything with a solid midsole, anything in the Metcon line, these are gonna feel a little bit on the squishy side, but they surprisingly still work. And I do think that's because of the ground contact on these shoes and the fact that they're just generally more neutral and flat. If you are used to like CrossFit shoes being like a 4mm drop, you're gonna feel right at home inside of these shoes. Are these the shoe that I would recommend for somebody that's doing really heavy lifts? No, absolutely not. These would not be, something that I'd recommend anybody to try to max out in, or even come remotely close to maxing out. I'd say 80, maybe 75% of your 1 rep maxes in these shoes, they should handle just fine. But if you're going for maximal loads, these are not gonna be the shoe for you. But if we're talking about the day-to-day grind, I think that these are gonna be just fine. And the way that they handle body weight, plyometric, and running more than makes up for the stability that you're losing in these shoes. Okay, so these things come in at $120, which was actually surprising to me. I thought that these were gonna be like a little bit cheaper, maybe around the $100 price point. And for that price, I think that these would be an absolute steal. When you're at the $120 price range, then you're now contending with the free Metcon 5, which is another shoe that I really like. And given the choice, it's a tough choice because I think that the Air Zoom trainers to me are a better running plyometric body weight movement kind of shoe. And they're surprisingly still stable, but the free Metcons have more of a stable feeling when it comes to your lifting movements because the midsole is more solid. Obviously, the free Metcons are gonna be the flexible Metcon, but the midsole doesn't have that much give to it. It's pretty comfortable and they're still flexible. Whereas the midsole on the Air Zoom trainer, like I said before, kind of wants to bounce you around, and that can kind of feel weird when you're doing your lifting movement. So if you wanted, I'd say the more stable shoe, then go with the free Metcon, and you're still not really losing too much in the body weight and plyometric running area. But if you wanted something that is more geared to that stuff, and you didn't really do super duper heavy weights, then I'd say go with the Air Zoom trainer. Another thing that I think that these would be pretty good for is just like traveling. If you wanted just a single pair of shoe to wear around when you go traveling, then I think the Air Zoom trainer would be a good option for you. They're good for like walking around. Like I said, maybe standing is a little tough in them, but walking around is fine. You could work out in them. You could go running in them. If you just get the black and white ones, they look pretty incognito, and you could probably wear them to a restaurant or like maybe even the club if you wanted to. But all in all, I think that the Air Zoom trainers are actually pretty good, and I would recommend them. Maybe not wholeheartedly for just if you are a die-hard CrossFitter. I'm not sure that these would be the best option for you, but if you're looking for a solid all-around training shoe, you're not like a crazy power lifter, and you're looking for something that's going to be able to handle most weights, I think that the Air Zoom trainer is actually one of the better options out there, and it might be better for you than something like the free Metcon 5. And if you're not handling heavy weights, it's definitely better than a normal Metcon. So if you have any questions about the Air Zoom trainer, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.